Hey, everybody. I'd like to put together kind of what we did today in a different context. Not all that different. In fact, I'm going to run through a similar scenario, but think of this as Melba's scene number two, where she's directing again to be able to say, this is what she wants. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this process, hopefully in a clear format so that you can understand what's coming. But it might be a little bit faster than we did the last time, but not by much. You can always slow it down, stop it, go back if you need to, and hopefully make sense of what's going on. So Melba starts out here and she says that the second scene from Melba is that a car starts at rest somewhere on the left side of the screen. It then accelerates to 30 centimeters per second in 0.5 seconds. And then it continues to the right at 30 centimeters per second. So this sounds very familiar. And much of this will be the same as before. But we've got some ideas kind of breaking it down. I'd like to go ahead and show you. I went ahead and made this scene into an actual scene. And so let me show you what that looks like now. So here is my car kind of at rest on the left-hand side of the screen. And when I hit play, this car is going to then accelerate, right? As it says right here, accelerates to 30 centimeters per second in half a second. And then it's going to continue to the right at 30 centimeters per second. So here it goes. Let's go ahead and take a look over here. I'm going to hit play. So it's going to accelerate to the right and then drive off. Now, that is so fast. So let's go back here again and see it. That's it. That's the whole scene. It might not look like much, but believe it or not, there's quite a bit that goes into it. And if I go back here in the scene itself, you'll notice that it starts at rest, starting at rest. And then when it starts to move, it moves just a little bit at first, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And off it goes until it's moving at 30 centimeters per second. I don't know what this is, so we're going to close that. All right, so let's look to see kind of how I break that down and make sense of it. First things first, right up here it says, what is the initial velocity of the car? So some of these things, of course, are just kind of read them off and write them down. And that first one is read them off and write them down. So I'm going to say that our initial velocity of the car is 0 centimeters per second, right? And then over here, it's also going to be 0 centimeters per frame because we're starting from a stopped position. And we could essentially not worry about the conversion here. But if I did, if I put a 0 centimeters per second and I said, hey, the conversion factors between this are, 1/30th of a second per frame, 0 times 1/30th, that's still 0. So we've got 0 centimeters per frame, which is what's going on over here. All right, so that's our first part. The second part to it says, what is the final velocity of the car? All right, so we're trying to figure out how fast is it moving in the end. And it said that it's going to be moving at 30 centimeters per second. All right, this one's a little bit harder because it's not going to be 30 and 30. It's going to be a new number here. So I go ahead and make a conversion in the exact same way that I did up above, where I'm going to say 30 centimeters per second is my starting point. And then in the middle, I said, well, one frame is 1/30th of a second, and that second is going to cancel here. And so now 30 times 1/30th is equal to 1. 30 times 1/30th is 1, and that's 1 here. So now we have 30 centimeters per second is 1 centimeter per frame. So this looks very familiar to what happened in class today. And if I keep going down my way, the next piece to this is to say, well, how many seconds does that take to accelerate? Once again, we're talking about a time that's given by Melba of 0.5 seconds. And we're saying, well, how many frames is 0.5 seconds? Recognizing that, again, we've got our conversion factor in the middle. So I've got 0.5 seconds, and I've got 30 frames are happening every second. And so if I cancel my seconds here and I multiply 0.5 times 30, I walk away with 15. So 0.5 seconds is equal to 15 frames as long as we're working at 30 frames per second. That makes sense. All right, let's look down below. And I'm going to skip some of these other questions for just a moment. The acceleration question, the change in velocity question, and the distance question. And I'm going to come down here to the scene timeline. I'm going to see if I can fill in some of these pieces as things go. So I'm going to come over here and say, well, what do I know? Well, at the beginning, frame 0, The position is going to be wherever it starts on the screen. And I closed my video. I'm just going to say, let's say that it starts at 0 kind of centimeters as a starting point. So that's my kind of 0 centimeters, not a tremendous 0, but let's make that 0 better. There it is. And then my velocity is also going to start at 0 because it says it starts from rest. And my acceleration, we don't know this yet, but we can figure that out a little bit up there in the document. Let's see if I can erase. I just have to deal with the blue. Okay, there it is. So I got 0, 0, and I don't know yet. So let's see where we go. The other thing is that I know that in 15 frames, my velocity should be all the way here at 1, right? This is 1, again, centimeter per frame. And then it said after that, it's going to continue with 1 centimeter per frame, which means that it's going to stay at 1 centimeter per frame all the way down as it goes. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Well, if all of these are ones, right, and we're not changing and we're just driving to the right at 1 centimeter per frame, then my acceleration is also known. And I know that this is my acceleration because is my velocity changing? No, my velocity isn't changing, and my acceleration is equal to a change in velocity over a change in time. So if this change in velocity here is equal to 0, then this fraction is equal to 0, and that means that my acceleration drops to 0, and all of these are 0. Now, is the car not moving? No, it's moving. It's just not speeding up or slowing down. So that's what I've got. So I've got some more knowledge. Do I know where the car is? No, we haven't figured that out yet, but we will. And so we'll leave that kind of blank for just a moment. So this is what we know so far. We know that at frame 15, it's going 1 centimeter per frame. We know that its acceleration drops to 0 because it's no longer speeding up. And we don't quite know what the acceleration is yet, but we know it starts at position 0 and its velocity is 0. So there's some things we already know.